welcome to a special edition, Sunday edition of Monty and the Pharaoh. I'm Mike Monty. This is
The Pharaoh.
And we've got special guest, promoter Eric Sims. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you for having me here. No BS with ESS.
And a very special guest, WWE Superstar, former Superstar, Intercontinental Champion, European Champion. The Pharaoh will go through the long list. Mr. Val Venis, thank you for joining us.
Hello, ladies.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me here, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Great setup y'all got here.
Thank you so much.
Digging this. How long y'all been here for?
This is a new studio, so we joined, about a month and a half ago?
Oh,
we were in another
yeah.
studio in the same town. It was a really cool studio, but the station itself a year ago was about 7 shows, and now we're about 34 shows and growing.
We are growing.
We were just talking before you got here, we're probably going to start a news channel. We got a lot of things going on here.
Very
and then with,
cool.
high-profile people like yourself coming on, it just brings more and more attention.
Like that.
So thank you for coming aboard.
Absolutely.
And you too, Eric. You're a high-profile promoter.
A super agent, yes. I don't
right.
I don't get enough credit out there, but yes.
That's right.
I'm the one that, a lot of agents are around, but I'm the one that, mentored most of them either directly or indirectly.
There you go.
I'm like the
There you
OG of it. So it's
Your influence is felt.
30 yes,
There
thank
you
you.
go.
33 years of doing this. Someone needs to pick up something or learn something or wasting their time.
Excellent.
That's great. That's great.
Shall I?
Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, Val Venis, a.k.a. Sean Allen Morley, born 3/6/71, 6'3", 240. I should only hope to be so
You
big.
still weighing 240, brother?
I'm trying to get down to 210.
Okay.
But it seems like every time I get to the 230 mark, I'm still healthy. The second I get to 229, I don't know what it is. I think I got to lose weight slower. I'm trying to get to 210 because I want to run one marathon in my life.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, at 250, 260 on my knees, it's just not healthy, right? So I want to get to 210. But every time I hit 229, I don't know what happens, whether it's a sugar in the brain problem, but I can't think straight. I start to get lethargic. I start to get, I think I lose weight too fast. And so every time I hit that 229 mark and I can't function properly, I say, okay, I got to take a break from so much cardio, so much dieting. And I take a break, and then all of a sudden I start to get my thought processes back. I get normalized again. By that time, I'm back up to about 236 to 240. So I'll start to try and, tighten up my diet, amp up my cardio from half an hour to an hour and a half again. And again, I get right back down to 229, the same shit happens. So it's I'm on number 4, trying to get past 229.
Okay.
And this time, I'm not going to do an hour and a half of cardio. I'm going to do maybe 45 minutes, 50. See if I can lose it a little bit slower. Maybe that's the cure for getting past 229. and
Yeah,
not
it could
being
be a
all-
pacing situation.
Yeah, that's what it's got to be, right? Because the second I hit 229 pounds, it's I can't put my left foot in front of my right to
It's
walk
time for a
straight.
different
Do you think
approach.
maybe that's just got to be your body weight, though, like 230? I mean, maybe just your natural 230, and that's,
Maybe, but still, I still have, I have some. I think I get down to 210.
Okay.
I think my personal opinion is, and I could be wrong. This is just a best guess because I haven't been down through the 210 area since my last year of high school.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking that it may be I was just losing the weight too fast and starving my brain of sugar. That's what I've been told when I start asking questions to figure out why I can't get past 229. And that's the common response is I think you're just losing it too quickly and not doing it slow enough. So I'm going to slow it up this time as I go back down. I'm at 236 right now. Try to get past this 229. And
You look pretty good at 236, dude.
Oh,
So,
thanks.
you look great.
And I
I
don't
think, marathons are something I've always wanted to do all my life. It wasn't too interest. But as I get older, I'm at 48 years old. I'm like, it'd be really nice to say that I ran one marathon before I die. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And I'm approaching 50. And so, it's a goal. I made it a goal, and I want it, but I got to get down to 210.
So I just had a stress test, just make sure everything's okay, first of all, but then make sure, because I want to run a marathon also.
Did you take it before or after the show?
But yeah, I'd like to run one marathon.
You're pretty big. You look pretty big guy.
It was okay. It was all right. I mean, I'm quite overweight at this point, but I've got to get down to about 230. I think I could function at, and then attempt to run a marathon. So arteries are clear, so I got to get my stuff together.
It takes a while to build the cardio up.
Oh well, I try to do as much cardio as I possibly can, but
Yeah.
I digress.
You got the weights mastered. You're pretty.
You're yoked, bro.
You look pretty jacked there.
I keep looking for my car in the parking lot. He's pushing it around just for shits and giggles. Hey, put it over here. Put it over here.
I don't know anyone that goes to the gym more than you.
Yeah, he was.
And you think I wouldn't be as fat as I
He
am?
goes
So
every day.
God.
Yeah, looking at him, he's definitely put a lot of years into throwing iron around. That's
Yep.
for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Jimmy, look out your window. I'm curling your car.
The yoga, like the Dallas Page yogas, that'd be great for losing the weight. And
Right.
So I actually have it. I haven't.
You have it?
Yeah,
It's good.
I gotta get my
It's
shit
wonderful
together.
My wife has it too. DDP's yoga.
You
Yep.
got to get that T-shirt that says "I'd flex, but I like this shirt."
Oh, please.
I like that.
Well, back to the impeccable resume, pretty much. He's a two-time Intercontinental Champion, Mr. Venus, one-time European Champ, one-time Tag Team Champ with one of my personal favorites, Lance Storm.
Yes, Lance Storm.
Wanted
One of
to
the
ask
best in the
you,
world.
when did you start wrestling? When did the idea come into your head? Did you have any favorites growing up? Was this a childhood thing?
I always loved professional wrestling. My brother and I would always, pretend to professional wrestle as kids in the living room. We always watched it. It was always something we were always entertained by. Back when I was a kid, I raced motocross. I did wrestling, club wrestling in high school, wrestling as well. Wrestling was really motocross was my main sport outside of school. In school, wrestling was my main sport. And never really considered becoming a professional wrestler, even though it was something I always looked at like, oh, that'd be friggin' cool as hell, right? But never thought about it. As I was going through high school, I made the determination that I wanted to become a helicopter pilot. And I wanted to eventually fly air ambulance. So I had this plan laid out where I was going to go into the military, and I was going to take aeronautical science, and maybe I wanted to fly H-64 Apaches or the big cargo helicopters in the military. I had different plans that I wanted to do, but ultimately I wanted to fly air ambulance helicopters after the military. The day after I graduated high school, I was already training professionally on the weekends, just because it was something that I liked. Met Shane Sewell on a few local shows in Toronto, and then soon after I graduated, Shane and I went over to England and started wrestling full-time over there. My original goal was, I'll wrestle for a few months over here for the summer, and then I'll start university in the fall. I was going to do the ROTC program with the military and start my track towards becoming a helicopter pilot. When we went over to England, that was my first full-time professional wrestling job. I fell in love with the business instantaneously. And that began my career right there. I never went to university. I started wrestling in England full time. I spent what was only supposed to be a few months, spent a whole year over there.
Okay.
And then Shane and I went and tag teamed in Arkansas for almost a year, and then we went down to Puerto Rico. Wow. And that was our first big territory. At the time, it was still a big territory. And from there,
the Colognes.
The Colognes, yeah.
Gotcha.
They're 5 nights a week, every single week, all year long for several years. I guess they only do maybe once or twice a week now. It's slowed down a lot there now. But
Did the old timers give you any problem?
No, man, I loved Puerto Rico. It was such a fun time. We worked hard and we played hard down there. Is the best way I can sum up my Puerto Rican.
Okay.
6 years of that. It was incredible.
You know what I found
loved it.
really interesting about your resume, particular, it stood out to me. CMLL is the world's oldest wrestling promotion.
So Shane and I, we were tagging in Puerto Rico. We were the heel tag team of Puerto Rico at the time, and so we got an offer to go over to Mexico and do some appearances, some shots over there. And Shane, he fell in love with Puerto Rico. He wanted to stay there, and so I really wanted to expand my horizons and head over to Mexico. So we did this thing. Hey, if you want to stay here and I want to go to Mexico. Let me see if they'll take me as a singles. We've been here way too long as tag in Puerto Rico anyways. And so we said, maybe we can do a big run angle here in Puerto Rico, do a big split. I'll head off to Mexico, right? And so I called it was through Victor Quinones at the time. We called Paco Alonso, who's the promoter for he owns Arena Mexico. And said, hey, would you mind taking me over there as a singles as opposed to being in a tag team? And they had a mask they wanted somebody to wear, and that would fit perfect for Sean at the time. And so they agreed. So Shane and I, we worked out a deal where he was going to stay in Puerto Rico. I was going to do a thing. We were going to split. So we did, the tag team, the misdirection, boom, cost us the titles.
Right.
And now Shane's pissed at me and I'm pissed at him. And 6 weeks on TV in Puerto Rico, we just kept screwing each other over. We built it into a big, loser leaves town match. Of course, Shane and I did our singles match. I lose, and that's how we split up. And I went to Mexico, and I arrived in Mexico and put on the singles mask. And from that point, the first couple of shots, I did some 6-mans, which is most of the matches down there, 3-on-3.
Yep.
And it was always with Raul de Jalisco Jr. on the opposing team. And then eventually it worked into screwing Raul de Jalisco over to take the pinfalls a couple of times. And then finally it works into a championship match between Raul de Jalisco Jr. and myself. And we did it in Arena, Mexico. I took the title, and that began him chasing the title from me.
Were you aware of the history of this belt at the time? This must have looked great on your resume as you're trying to get to Vince. This has to look great.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Being on Vince's radar at the time, I was so immersed into Mexican wrestling at that point, and so fascinated by it that, everybody wants to get to the big show up in New York, but at the time I was so immersed, Vince was kind of an afterthought at that point. I was liking what I was doing in Mexico City, and I enjoyed working there very, very much. And so we ran an angle. Raul de Jalisco's chasing me. His father, God rest his soul, he was a famous Mexican wrestler down there. He was in all the soap operas and stuff. Mm-hmm. By the time I got there, he's supporting his son now, who was the former world champion, because I took the title from him.
Right.
But we did a thing where I ended up smashing the glass award that Raul de Jalisco Sr. had awarded and smashed it over his head, put him in the hospital, really building up the angle. People were pissed. I'm trying to think who was... I can't remember who was. There was a couple of Mexican wrestlers that were outside. Mm-hmm. There was one of them specifically that yelled at me, "Amigo, vámonos ahora!" And I was like, "Oh shit!" And I looked and I saw the fans all coming out of their seats.
Oh my god!
And I smashed that glass plaque over the old man's head.
Now you've done it.
Yeah,
you're a little too good at what you're doing.
Yeah,
excellent.
We beelined it on out of there. And,
I wanted to ask you because we want to cover so much stuff with you. So
absolutely.
we have limited time, but I want to get this in. Tell us about the call that came to you from the WWF when it was time. Tell us about the big call that you got, and who came up with the Val Venis gimmick, and were you happy about that?
Yeah, so I had done a tryout match in Des Moines, Iowa, and at the time, as soon as I did that Des Moines dark match, it was one of those things where I got a call from Jim Ross. He says, "Hey, we want to bring you up to Des Moines. We want to see you work in our ring, and we'll check you out." So I took 2 days off from Mexico City, flew up to Des Moines, Iowa, and did the shot, and then flew back to Mexico. Now, part of my deal was, hey, if you guys want to negotiate anything, just to let you know, if we do ever agree to anything, I need to finish up here in Mexico. I wasn't going to. Mexico treated me really well. There's no way I'm afraid to leave them high and dry, right, with the title. Mm-hmm. And so I let them be aware of that, you know what I mean? And they were cool with that. So when they decided to make me an offer, we bounced around back and forth a couple times over the offer. And finally, I just said, okay, I still have 6 months left to run this program with Raul de Jalisco to sign this now and stay in Mexico for the next 6 months. And they said, yeah, that's great. We'll do vignettes. We'll spend a day or two doing vignettes, go back to Mexico and finish up.
Oh, that's great.
And while you're in Mexico, we'll run the vignettes. So that's what we did. And Vince was cool with that. I think Vince really appreciated the fact that I wanted to make sure that I could still finish my obligations in Mexico. And I think he really appreciated that. I think that kind of helped solidify things as well with him. He saw, so he's telling me he wants to finish up down there. That means I don't have to worry about him ditching me to go to WCW. You know what I mean?
Right.
So leaving him high and dry.
Which was happening back then all the time. So.
Yeah, so he knew I wasn't going to leave Paco Alonso high and dry. I'm not going to leave Vince McMahon high and dry either, you know? And so I think that was a good thing to do, too. I think that led to, a good thing for between WWE and I.
I always like to ask these questions. So you're going to be flying planes or whatever, and then you go to become a wrestler. What does your family think that you make this turn Are they like trying to convince
My
you
mom
not to?
loved it.
She did, huh?
Yeah, my mom loved
Wow.
it.
Okay.
And my mom thought it was great. My dad, he's like, yeah, whatever. You know? my dad's just cool with everything.
Okay.
He's like, oh, that's cool. You know what I mean? So yeah.
You know, you got kind of lucky. You know, one of them could have been like, "What?
Oh yeah.
No!
Yeah, it could've been,
What, are you kidding me? Get in the chopper! Get in the chopper!"
Yeah, no, my parents referred.
Well, but how do you say it? You're like, I was going to do this, but I just because it's like two ends of the planet, right? It's
Right,
like,
yeah.
How do you even present that to your family? How does that happen?
It's like, well, my parents, at the time, see, I came out of high school a hardcore left-wing socialist, but at the time I had just read Ayn Rand's book Atlas Shrugged, which really made me, and when I say a socialist, I wasn't involved in politics, I didn't know anything about it, but if you would have asked me, hey, what do you think about universal health care, I immediately, without even thinking about the repercussions of what that entails, I would have said, yeah, everybody has a right to health care, everybody should have health care. So it wasn't that I was into it, I was just parroting the stuff that I was taught from government schools. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
But after I read Ayn Rand's book Atlas Shrugged, it really opened my eyes and I started questioning everything I was taught.
Is this where the anarchist philosophy starts to come in?
This was the beginning of the path that led me to anarchy.
Gotcha.
And so at the
Gotcha.
time I started asking my parents questions, why is this?
Right.
Why was I never taught to question this in school? Why was I just, this is the way it is? I always assume that's the way it is, but now that I've read this book, it's making me question this that I've always assumed this is the way it is.
Right.
And I'd ask my parents, why is this? And they're like, I don't know, I never thought about that. And when my parents are telling me they never thought about that question either, I started questioning everything.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so at that point, I kind of started to be like, we should be able to do whatever the fuck it is we want to do. We only got one life on this planet.
Right.
Who are
Right.
politicians to dictate what we can and cannot do?
Right.
And so when they started seeing me get to that, a few years later, I'm like, hey, I want to wrestle professionally. They're like, not gonna test that.
Yeah.
If you want to do that,
Yeah, sure.
That sounds good, son.
yeah, you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah. What was your response to the Val Venis gimmick, and who came up with this? Was this Vince gave you a phone call and said, "By the way, I got this idea"?
So I had signed in January '98, and I was back down in Mexico performing. Continuing my obligations down there. It was about a month and a half or so went by, and I get a call. It was 7 o'clock in the morning in Mexico City. My phone rings in the hotel, and I'm like, "Hello," and it's Vince, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, Vince, how are you doing?" And he's like, "So we got this character that we want to, shoot by you, and I want to tell you that if you don't feel comfortable with this character, you have to tell me no, you don't want to do it, because if you don't feel comfortable doing it, it's not going to work. And I don't want to put money behind something that you don't feel comfortable, because that's going to take away the chances of that character working," which makes perfect sense.
Right.
And so I said, I'm all ears. And he says, okay, so Val Venis, the last name spelled Venis. Now, when he spelled that to me, I didn't know why he was spelling it to me, but when he spelled it to me, it didn't clue in. I was kind of like, okay.
Hey, Vince, you're spelling it wrong.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking, but okay, whatever.
You're smart enough to spell.
And he goes, now Val Venis was a former film star turned pro wrestler. And the first thought in my head is,
Orson Welles?
I'm thinking Jesse Ventura,
Okay.
Hollywood Jesse Ventura.
Yeah, okay.
Makes lots of films.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I'm thinking that's already been done.
Right.
I'm not saying this. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
right.
this.
Thinking this.
It's already
Okay.
been done. How's something that's already been done going to work?
Right.
But I'm still ears. And then he says, now Val Venis is actually
Here we go.
an adult film star turned pro wrestler. I go, I'm in.
I'm in.
He goes, whoa.
Business, and now you're talking to this giant
Yeah.
icon.
The man, yeah.
What are you feeling like?
Well, I'm thinking porn star turned pro wrestler. Fuck yeah! And
Pitch me.
And so Vince is
Oh
like,
my
"Whoa,
God.
hold on here, hold on." I go, "No, you don't have to twist my arm anymore. I'm in.
Right.
I'll do it." And he goes, "Hold on. Listen, I need to make sure you're comfortable with this character." And I'm going, "I'm comfortable. I'm in." So
Okay.
he goes, "Listen, I want you to take 24 hours at least and ponder it." And
Really wants
just
to make
think about
sure.
the implications, whatever. Make sure there's nothing you don't feel uncomfortable about. He says, you need to feel comfortable about this character from start to finish. And I go, well, what is there about this character that I wouldn't feel comfortable about?
You might
it
lose
hasn't
your
been done
pee-pee.
before, and it's a porn star turned pro wrestler.
All right, that's
He goes,
Unbelievable.
just sit on it for 24 hours, right? So okay, well, 24 hours later, I called him up and said, I'm in. That was it.
That's
That was
it.
pretty much it.
Wow.
Didn't need a lot of pondering about it, right? So Yeah, that was pretty much it,
And
Did you call wardrobe and say, "Where's my wardrobe? Here's a towel"?
No, it was, so I finished up my obligations. We actually, at the time, once we settled on that, we flew up, I took a couple days off, flew up to New York, we did the vignettes, and then he sent me back down to Mexico to finish up my obligations at the time. And so the vignettes were playing while I was still wrestling in Mexico under the mask. Okay. And didn't think about wardrobe or anything. We already had the towel. The way the towel came about was the very first vignette where I stepped out of the shower with the Scores girls.
Okay.
And there was a towel hanging on the rack. So it was just part of the scene.
Right.
And when I opened up the thing, I take the towel off and I wrap it around my waist and I cut my promo for the vignette. And the first thing I thought was, I'm wearing a towel. Nobody wears a towel to the ring.
That's right.
I'm going to wear this to the ring.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's as simple as that. That's how the towel gimmick came up. It was just part of the very first vignette. And the very first thing I did was step out of the shower, wrap it around my waist, and I'm like, hey, that's a great gimmick there. And
but I got to ask, though, because the towel thing is a work of art.
Yeah.
Did you, in the hotel room, were you practicing that?
No.
Because that was so
none
great.
of that. None
stuff
of that
was
planned.
great.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
It just came on the fly.
Really?
Literally
Well,
came
here's
on
to the fly.
Yeah, absolutely. It was
awesome.
something like, okay, I'm going to wear a towel to the ring. And so that's all I thought about it. And so the very first night when I make the appearance on Raw, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing with this towel. No clue. I just know I'm going down there as a porn star and gonna, hit on the girls and
Right.
bash the guys. And so the very first time I walk out as Val Venis onto the stage, and I went, well, what should I do now? And I'm like looking around, going, I'm gonna swivel my hips, and I just fucking went, bing, put my hands on my back, and I was doing it on stage. And so every time I went out, I added a little something to it just based on how I felt walking down to the ring. And it took probably a couple of weeks of walking down to the ring, every night before I got to the point where, okay,
Really?
this feels good in the middle of the ring, pointing there,
Love it.
gigging it out, and taking the towel off, doing a little dance with it, spinning it around. So it was a work in progress that eventually,
And where do we get in my opinion, one of the great catchphrases? Hello, ladies. Where does that come from?
So that's another one
beautiful.
that was just part of the very first vignette.
Okay.
When I stepped out of that shower, I went, it was the one when I was laying in the bed.
Okay.
The very, very first vignette when I was laying in the bed when it said Val Venis is coming. And I went, hello, ladies, to the camera. It was the introduction.
It's the best.
And it's the introduction of the vignette. Why shouldn't it be the introduction of my ring appearance?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And it was something that no one else has done. It's simple. It's hello,
Here's
ladies.
a ridiculous question, though. So I always thought about this. There's an HBO comedy series that came out. It was out for 2 years called Hello Ladies. And I always wondered if you ever trademarked that saying and you got residuals from them using that.
No, I never did. And personally,
That's the first thing I used to think all the time. He's making money right now.
because that's his. Hello,
yeah.
ladies.
No, and so being an anarchist, I'm against trademarks and copyrights.
Okay.
So, hey, if anybody wants to go out there and use the Val Venis character, go ahead. It's the biggest form of flattery. You'll never be the original.
You'll never be the guy.
So,
Not even close.
hey, go out there and make your money, do your thing. You know what I mean? But you'll never be the original. You know what I mean? And so, to me, trademarks, patents, whatever it is. I'm not going to patent anything. I'm not going to trademark anything. I'm a freedom guy.
Eric, you'd be trademarking the hell out of that.
Oh,
he'd be all over that shit.
Through and through. Hello,
ladies.
No, his catchphrase would be, "Hello, protectors in government. Give me my trademark so nobody can use my. It's no BSS or no BS with the SS." He would trademark.
Well, because business and success end in ESS.
I'll give you guys a prime example, just real quick.
Go ahead.
So when I wanted to start my Captain Cannabis show, right? I started it. I saw someone else was using Captain Cannabis spelled with C's.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to spell it that way anyway. I was going to spell it with K's just
Nice.
because it's different.
Just to do it. Yeah.
Just to do it.
Yeah.
And this guy has a comic book that's Captain Cannabis, whatever. Okay, good for him.
Okay.
So I started the Captain Cannabis show. Now, after a few episodes, I was like, the Captain Cannabis show's too long. And, it's mostly about cannabis. It's also about politics in cannabis as well. And I was already thinking about shortening it and maybe getting rid of the cannabis, just doing the Captain show. That way I'm not limited to just cannabis.
Right.
But right before I was about to shorten it anyway, I get a cease and desist order from a lawyer.
Now you've done it. Now you've made
From
a
a guy that has the comic book and a radio show called Captain Cannabis down in Florida. It's just a small little thing.
Right.
It's not like he's got a huge following.
Right.
And spelled with C's. completely different thing, right? But he sends me the cease and desist order, so I'm looking at it, I'm going, and his email was Freedom Radio something, right? So I go and look it up, and he's got a podcast. It's all about freedom and radio.
Right.
And
he's trying to stop.
He has a trademark on Captain Cannabis. I'm going, so this guy is advocating freedom and liberty, and he's using government to protect his fucking
Harry hypocrite. Harry hypocrite in the
Harry hypocrite. I was like, whatever. I'm short of the fucking name anyway. I just
Yeah,
kind of threw
there
it
you
away,
go.
you know.
Up yours.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, of course, that as you get this gimmick, did you have any idea just how much Vince would push the envelope with this gimmick? Because, for example, two of the more memorable vignettes I remember with the great Val Venis, Kyantai chopping off PP. And, of course, the first one that really, look, Jenna Jameson popping out of the bushes.
Correct, yeah.
What are we talking here? You have arrived, man. So it's basically like, wow. Did you know that Vince was going to push the envelope this hard?
I knew he was going to push the envelope because it was kind of his baby at the time, right? Vince Russo and him, I guess.
And that's also what I wanted to ask you. What is your opinion on the impact that Vince Russo had in this business?
Vince Russo is a fantastic creative guy. He's absolutely amazing.
Do you think he's underrated or overrated? He is it's such a hot spot of criticism and controversy over the years. I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's done some great things in this business. Do you feel like he gets enough credit or too much credit, especially during that time period? Because he was almost as red hot as the wrestlers themselves when he left to go to WCW. Think about it. This is a writer that was making huge internet, noise. So
I think Vince Russo, and I have a lot of respect for Vince Russo. I loved his creativity, and he's amazing when it comes to creative, the creative aspect of professional wrestling. I will say this, however. I think the team of Vince McMahon and Vince Russo is a perfect team because Vince Russo will push the envelope in the most creative ways you can imagine. And then you have the businessman, Vince McMahon, who will be his governor, and he'll have the chains on him. And as far as Vince Russo wants to push the envelope with great ideas, McMahon will pull that chain back and says, we can do that, but we're going to do it right back here. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so there was a great balance between pushing the envelope.
The two philosophies.
Absolutely.
Right.
The business side of it and the creative side of it meshed together perfectly, and you had an excellent character in the name Val Venis.
Fair to say, ego ultimately killed this wonderful team.
I think what happened with Vince Russo is we all have egos, especially in this business. We all got egos. I'm not going to say, I don't have an ego. I have a fucking ego, let me tell you.
Hello, ladies?
Right. I think everybody should have egos. I like people with egos. Confident.
You're running home here, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
We barely got through the door.
Yeah, and some people demonize people with egos.
Right.
I find comfort in people with egos because I can see they're confident in themselves. You know what I mean?
There you go.
And that's just a reality that nobody can deny. It's a fact. People with egos generally have a lot of confidence, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Right.
People with over-the-top egos can be a little problematic, but that's a different story. So Vince Russo has an ego just like we all do. And I think when he went to WCW, Eric Bischoff is a businessman, but he wasn't the businessman to control the creative aspect of Vince Russo. And Vince Russo, instead of being creative for behind the scenes and be creative for other people, where he's focusing on creating different storylines, which, let's face it, when Vince Russo was in WWE, every match had a story. Every match, from opening card to the end card. When he went to WCW, he didn't have those governing chains on him. His ego got the better of him, and he put himself in front of the camera.
Right.
And really, once you've put yourself in front of the camera, now your ego is driving the creativity aspect for your character. Now all of a sudden the importance of other characters, and it's just natural, the importance of other wrestlers creating storylines for them becomes less important.
So how do you feel that Vince was able to, because Vince himself put himself in the ring during the Attitude Era.
Yes.
How was he able to pull it all off while the company continued to grow, not take a hit? He's taking bumps in the ring as well as running it. How did he do that?
I think he did it in a way where he knew what his goals were through the day. And if he felt he could fit in creativity for the show with him being in it, he would fit that in, as long as it didn't interfere with what he was doing,
so
creating an entire show.
He never made himself the priority of the show. He just would intertwine it if he thought it fit.
Correct. That's my feeling. I don't know for sure. You'd have to ask him personally.
Sure.
But that's kind of the inkling I got. You know what I mean? He's running a business.
Right.
He wants to make sure everything else is taken care of. Maybe the fans will like this, and I can inject myself here.
It seems to me you got a big time respect for Vince.
I do. Well, look what the guy's done. You can't deny
Sure.
what he's done. He
Absolutely.
took a company that was a fairly big Northeast company and turned it into a global phenomenon.
Right.
Anybody that does, as much as the left in this country wants to demonize business people, to me that's remarkable.
It is.
You know, it's remarkable. It's hard
is.
work. It's
tenacity.
So we have this
Tenacity.
we have this conversation between ourselves a lot. Vince is a leader,
absolutely.
where Eric was, and again, I'm sure he's a businessman, but he was also more of a friend of the troops. Where Vince was the
Right.
leader of the troops.
You feel that way.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I can see
I'm gonna
that.
hit
That's
you.
a great analogy. I never
Yep.
thought about it.
I'm going to hit
Yep.
you with this subject. Then we have had some older wrestlers in, and some of the beef is they're not taken care of. Right? They've made Vince all this money, and once they've been put out to pasture, they've been put out to pasture. What's your viewpoint on that?
So, as an anarchist, when you sign that contract with Vince, you got to remember you're acting as a businessman, and he is a businessman. When you sign that contract, you're trading your work, labor, skill, and talent for whatever you've agreed upon in that contract. If you don't agree upon it, negotiate. If you want Vince to pay for your health care, negotiate that in your contract. And if it's not doable, you can negotiate a way where he can maybe give you more money to pay for health care. You negotiate something that's agreeable to you. Now, once you've agreed upon that, and now you're performing your duties, performing every night, that's what you've agreed to do. He's performing his duties. He's agreed to pay you this amount of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're both satisfying both ends of the contract. For the contract to finish, and now you're done, and to come back and say, now I'm done, I don't have any money to retire, whose fault is that? Whose fucking fault is that Vince's fault? That's not Vince's fault. You know what I mean?
I'm loving you right now, man. We're on that trade. We're on that trade.
For a long time.
Right. I mean,
especially mine.
you had those years. You had your opportunity to make I mean, Vince wants somebody to perform. He needs people to perform. You know, and he has to pay good talent, whatever it is they feel they want, need, and desire in order to satisfy their life. And that includes getting extra money for that they can store away in retirement.
Right.
Put that in your contract. Negotiate it. Do you know what I mean? And these guys that just say, oh, look, I'm getting this big money contract. I can afford health insurance. I can afford a new car. I can afford a house.
Right.
They go out and they blow all their money.
Don't live so large.
Now their contract's done, and they're like, "Oh, Vince isn't taking care of me, and I put my blood, sweat, and tears in that ring." Well, you put your blood, sweat, and tears in that ring because that's what you agreed to do.
Right.
Vince performed what he agreed to do, and that was to give you that money.
Right.
The fuck are you doing coming back saying he's the devil now? He fulfilled his obligations to you according to what you agreed to in the contract.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
I totally believe, right? You listen.
Absolutely.
Best part about living in this country, you don't like it, quit.
Yeah.
Right? Very simple. You have that right, right?
Yeah.
You could.
Now, if you want to come and you
That
want to
doesn't mean
talk
get
to
on the
me,
keyboard.
now, if you want to come and you want to talk to me about, okay, Vince is paying you this much, you agreed to it, and you're performing this much, you agreed to it, but now government's coming in and taking 30%, we can talk about that.
Sure.
Right.
Because that's just
Right.
theft and extortion. Let's see, that's something important to talk about. But to sit there and demonize somebody that's already fulfilled their obligations to you based on the contract that you agreed to, that's wrong on so many different levels, you
Right.
know? And I know a lot of people on the left are going to disagree with me, but let's face it, Vince is not a welfare agency. He's a business. And you're a free person that's in a free climate, freely negotiating a contract with him. Live up to your obligations and leave it at that. That's,
Right.
you know what I mean? That's
Fair
business. You know what I mean? This
Fair
whole
enough.
thing that
And as far as the
somebody
left goes,
owes other people something is
The guy to the
crazy.
left agrees. So.
So I want to get into the important part of CBD oil and all that. So real quick question for you: anabolic steroids and illegal drugs in wrestling. I'll ask you straight. Don't have to answer. Did you dabble in anabolic steroids?
Yeah, I did. I
And
absolutely did.
if you did, my next question on that is why it seems the wrestlers that we do meet seem to take homage in the fact that they did illegal drugs, but they don't want to admit that they did steroids.
We've
Why
realized it's
is
almost
that such a big
A
deal?
badge of honor. I partied, but if you bring up steroids, they're like,
It's
not
like-
me, it was the other guy.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I think that's indoctrination. I think it's the way people have been taught, you know, to believe. They've been manipulated by media, by government-run schools. Steroids aren't a good thing. Let's face it, they're not a good thing. But there's a lot of things that are out there that aren't good. You know, I never used a lot of steroids. The last time I used testosterone was back in 2001.
Okay.
And for me, so maybe I'm not the best person to ask about steroids because I would only do 8-week cycles, maybe twice a year. So I never did a whole lot. There are guys that would stay on all year long. And for me, I got great benefits from taking 200 milligrams of testosterone every 10 days for 8 weeks straight. I got fantastic benefits. Now, when people come up to me and they say, what about the side effects? I got to tell you, at that small dosage, I didn't see anything. I got no side effects from it. I enjoyed taking testosterone. And as it got close to 8 weeks, I was kind of bummed that I had to come off of it. And it wasn't that I had to come off of it, it was that I was sticking to my goals.
Right.
Right. And so I didn't lose too much weight when I would come off it because I wasn't on it that long and I didn't take a whole lot. So even when I did lose a few pounds here and there, I was still happy with the gains I kept.
Sure.
So I never had negative side effects from steroids. So I might be a bad person. Like I get, if I get a teacher to say, hey, can you go out there and talk about, the negativity of steroids? And I'm like, I'm not the best person to go out there and do that, bro, because I got good results from it,
right.
Healthy results from it. I got stronger, I got faster, I got better, and I still, even when I came off them after 8 weeks, I was still stronger than I was before I started. Now, if you want to find out what real negative side effects are, you got to ask the guys that took a lot of it.
Right.
There are negative side effects once you start overdoing it, acne, sleep problems, tendon tears are a big thing. I never had a tendon tear on me. So, for me, you say steroids, I say lunch.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Now,
Yeah.
do I want to do steroids now? I haven't done them since 2001. It was the last time I took them. Quite frankly, right now, no, I'm trying to get down to 210 so I can run a marathon. But after I'm done that one marathon, I might do another 8-week cycle to get myself back up to 250, 260.
Yeah.
And I'll fucking make no apologies about it. You know what I mean? Fuck that. I'll do it, and I don't care if it's illegal or not. But if you ask me about, are steroids bad? I can't say that, man. I always had good results from the small amount that I took. You know what I mean? And so again, it's personal responsibility, and.
Why do other wrestlers feel like they don't want to admit? They want to just feel like they're out there. It's like, oh, this guy's totally natural.
Why do you think there is a paranoia?
What is the paranoia?
I think it's just indoctrination. Okay. I think people are conditioned to believe that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Fair. Yeah.
It's like you're forgiven for shooting heroin. You're forgiven for snorting cocaine, but. God damn it! If you take a steroid, man, you are.
Yeah, and I'm an anarchist, so I think all drugs should be legal. Let's face it. By default, they are all legal right now because you can get anything you want. Give me an hour, I can go out and find it.
Sure.
So no matter, even with the war on drugs, you can find anything you want.
Right.
And so I think all drugs should be legal. I don't think government should be telling free people what they can and cannot put in their bodies. However, let's face it, heroin has killed so many of my friends. Man. Opiates. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I say heroin, I'm also including pharmaceutical opiates in that. It's killed so many of my friends. It's not a good thing to go and inject heroin and snort coke. You know what I mean? Yeah. The only thing that goes in this Ferrari is cannabis. Not even alcohol goes in this Ferrari. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's a personal choice for me. Right. I want to live my life healthy. Whereas if people want to perform in professional bodybuilding, we know that professional bodybuilding is loaded up with steroids. Sure. I will absolutely support a free man's desire, a dream to become a professional bodybuilder. Dude, just, here's my recommendation. Go and learn everything you can about all the different steroids, what I mean, before you go.
Know what you're doing to yourself.
Last week, Lanny Poffo last week said he wanted to be a big star and he knew he had to take steroids to do it. And you can't hold someone back from doing what they think they need to do to be successful, right?
Yeah, and I'd have to respectfully, I'd like to disagree with Lanny Poffel on that. I don't think you need to do steroids to get where you want to be. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got people like Rey Mysterio, for example. How did he get to be there, without being a huge guy? CM Punk, who's never done anything. Mm-hmm. How did he get to be there? So you can get there.
How about Kevin Owens?
And then you got professional.
Kevin Owens isn't doing any of that.
Absolutely. But then you got professional bodybuilders that have tried pro wrestling and couldn't make it yet. They were geeked to the gills.
Sure.
So
the game has changed. Back then, it was a big man's game. Now it's more of an athletic game.
Absolutely. But even back then, while the big bodies were money draws, the real money draws were still the people that had the charisma. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those things where if you got the charisma that cannot be denied, let's face it, no one is going to deny Rock's charisma. You can't deny that. He could be 110 pounds. If he's walking around doing the exact same thing he's doing now, or back when he was wrestling, talking the way he was talking, he'd still be a huge star. Do you know what?
So let
That's it.
let me ask you this:
It factor.
Mike versus Matt Skills. Mike Skills, Matt Skills. Which is more important to be a professional wrestler?
I think Matt Skills, you got to be able to at least put on a decent match. It doesn't got to be phenomenal, but you got to have the basics.
You got to be serviceable.
Absolutely.
Right.
But somebody that has, like, let's face it, Rock, definitely not the best wrestler on the card, but far from it. If you look at his matches, the moves that he does, I mean, there's nothing spectacular in there.
Probably the worst move in wrestling, right? The people's elbow.
The people's
the
elbow.
most ridiculous move in the history of
The
wrestling.
shittiest elbow on the face of
That's
God's
right.
green earth.
Yep.
But it's the most over move on the
my God,
planet.
it was unbelievable.
Because of the charisma that he packs into
it's
just,
unbelievable.
running the ropes twice, picking up the elbow, boom, doing
To tell you the truth, he was so captivating that before he went into the whole spiel, when he had the guy down, he would just stop and stare at
that's
the
it.
crowd, and the
Bingo.
crowd would be like, "Here it comes," and he'd be like, "Wait for it." He would feed into it.
You got to give credit to yourself.
Unbelievable.
You had the it factor.
absolutely
You had a
he
big
did.
time it factor
Yes, he
for a
did.
long time.
For me, professional
did.
wrestling was something I always loved. I always loved wrestling. So the technical aspect of it was always something that was interesting. But the charisma side of it was also something I knew I had to acquire as well. Rock, I think in his mind, he was a little bit different. He liked wrestling, but as far as the stuff like Japanese wrestling or stuff like,
Right.
Give me an example. Chris Benoit and Too Cold Scorpio.
Right.
Very, very technical wrestling.
Right.
That's not his
was
thing.
not his thing.
He's more of the entertaining guy, and that's what he put clearly that's what he put all of his focus into. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so, with the people's elbow, shittiest move in the world, he knew it.
Right.
He's not a dumb guy. He knows it's the shittiest move in the world.
Right.
But like you were saying, everything he did leading up to it,
Oh, my God.
to the whole crossing the arms, running the ropes, the way he would look into the camera before he run,
Unbelievable.
he made that move wanted by the fans.
He had such command with the crowd. I remember there was a particular vignette where The Rock was backstage. He's not even in front of the people. And he was saying something, and the crowd responded. And he repeated it to make them respond the same way again, and they did. He's not even out there. He's in the back.
He's in the
and
back.
they're responding
He's
to
not
him
even
as if he's standing right in front of them.
Yeah, Rock is one of those guys with the it factor. His
Incredible.
charisma personified. I think a lot of that, obviously a lot of that skill, he obviously spent a lot of hours in the hotel room
Right.
practicing his stick. That was clear.
Right.
But I think he's got a little bit of a natural talent, a natural seed that's there that he's just nurtured. He's just taken that natural talent and just nurtured it. And, he performed at the highest levels in terms of entertainment that's possible in the entertainment world. I mean, let's face it, he's the highest paid actor in Hollywood right now for a reason, you know, and it's the charisma that he possesses.
I want to get into the melting point.
Oh, sure.
Okay. You retire from wrestling. You're retired, semi-retired,
Semi-retired. I still do a few shots here and there once in a while. Yeah.
but now your main business is melting point extracts.
Melting Point X. So this is a little bit of a trip here. So
Okay.
when we legalized medical marijuana in 2010 in Arizona, I was already looking to get into the dispensaries in California. And so, but when we legalized it in 2010 Arizona, I was like, yes, I got to get into the dispensaries here. And it was very, very difficult to get a license. And the dispensaries that did pop up at the time, that did win the so-called lottery,
Right.
pretty sure you need to know somebody in the state to win that supposed lottery.
Right.
When the dispensaries first opened up, because there was still a little bit of nervousness there, the owners were only hiring family members and tight-knit friends. And it was very, very, very difficult to crack that nut. And I'm, going up, giving them my resume, letting them know, hey, this is my passion. I want to get into this. I want to learn the industry. And at the time, it was just closed. They weren't hiring anybody but their families and friends. And so I opened up a patient lounge for cannabis patients. It was a private lounge, and we had comedy nights there. We had band nights there. We rented dab rigs, rented bongs, sold papers and whatnot. But we didn't sell cannabis. The patients had to get their cannabis from the dispensaries, then they bring it to our lounge, And so we kept that open for a year, and I started to, get to know the people that were working the dispensaries. The dispensary owners were coming in, and so I met an extraction artist that worked at one of the biggest dispensaries in Arizona that had just opened up at the time. And it wasn't long after that I finally got an interview there, and finally got hired on there, and from there I just took off. Wow. And then we got stocks in the company. and then the company eventually merged with a big investment company in Canada, and now we're exploding all across the United States and in Canada as well. In fact, today is the grand opening of our very first Health for Life dispensary in Bethesda, Maryland.
Wow.
So we got, I think it's 3 that we're going to open up this year. Health for Life's is what we're opening up. That's our name of our dispensary. I think there's 3 more opening up in Bethesda next year. We got Pennsylvania coming online. New Jersey's going to come online. And so Health for Life dispensaries, man, we're opening them up everywhere, and it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. Awesome. Yeah.
So my whole life I've always been anti-drug, anti-marijuana. Sell me on this. Sell me on why I should be using CBD oil.
CBD oil to me is it's safe, it's natural, it's non-toxic, it's a powerful anti-inflammatory. CBD for me is a fantastic replacement for things like ibuprofen, Vioxx, Bextra, Celebrex, any of those synthetic toxic pharmaceuticals that the doctors are just going to feed to you like candy. You know what I mean? You can ignore all those. And CBD, taken every single day religiously, is just as anti-inflammatory as any of those synthetic toxic pharmaceuticals. If you're taking ibuprofen every day, you're going to come to a point where your liver enzyme levels are going to go through the roof. Your kidneys are going to be screaming at you to stop. That doesn't happen with CBD. CBD is natural. It comes out of a plant. It's non-toxic, and it's a very powerful anti-inflammatory. And you can take it for the rest of your life and not have to worry about your liver and kidneys going, hey, what the fuck are you doing to me? You know what I mean? So
Sure.
Right.
CBD it's a fantastic, not just a health tonic substance. It's also a medical substance in terms of its anti-inflammatory activity as well.
So here's a concern of mine. I've been thinking about taking CBD oil, right? Because we actually have a sponsor on the station. The issue is, how do you know you're getting the right stuff? A lot of stuff's coming from China. You know, how do you know you're getting safe stuff and legitimate stuff?
Yeah, you definitely want to get it from a reputable vendor. And if we can talk about an anarchist society again, an anarchist society compels people to become smart consumers. So instead of government slapping their seal of approval on it, and we all know how that goes, otherwise there wouldn't be recalls, so much shit slips by those government fucking, inspections and all that. And so that doesn't do a whole lot of good. But when consumers are relying on the free market, they have to do their own research into companies that they're dealing with. So you definitely want to research the company that you're buying your CBD from. You want to make sure that, and it's not just a quick search, you're buying their product, you're putting their product in your body. You want to make sure that where they're sourcing their CBD from is going to be legitimate. And that's a pretty easy process to do. Obviously the first thing to do, hey, can you give me numbers for the CBD manufacturing plant that you get your CBD from? Call them up. Hey, where do you source it from? Oh, we source our CBD from a farm in Germany. Can I have the number to that farm, please? You dig down deep. Make sure it's coming from a good farm that's growing great hemp or whatever. You just do your own research. And I would do that. I would do that even if the pharmaceutical company is giving you an anti-inflammatory. You want to research that company too, because you can't guarantee that they're going to be on the up and up either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So becoming a smart consumer and a consumer that researches the products that you're buying or the services that you're going to consume, that's really, it's important to do in a free society. You've got to become a smart consumer and not rely on government agencies to tell you what is good and what's not. Because as we've all seen, recalls prove that they're just humans. They're doing the same research. I doubt they're doing the same research that you would do buying a product that's important to you.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So
Sure.
I think you can be your own inspection agency is basically what I'm saying.
Do you think we'll live to see the double standard finally come to an end, where marijuana is looked at least on the same level as far as I'm concerned, total poison, otherwise known as alcohol? Because we can all do that. We all have no problem with that. Let's go get a case. Let's go hit somebody. Let's get a DWI. Let's do this. Let's do that. Do you think we'll be able to see that in our lifetime? Because New York here has a program I have a license, and I find the New York's program to be very, very restraining.
It is.
And they're basically raping us financially through the doctors. By the time we actually get to the actual medicine ourselves, we're broke.
Oh, it's
We
terrible.
can't even afford the medicine. So what's the point?
Yeah.
I mean, do you see this, hopefully, in our lifetime coming to an end where we can get it as easily as a six-pack?
I do. I think it's going to be a fight because you got to remember what
Nice.
comes along with marijuana. They're not the only people that are really interested in keeping marijuana illegal are law enforcement, the private prisons, because it's a huge boon to the private prisons.
Okay.
So law enforcement, it keeps them busy. Private prisons, it keeps them, at capacity, and the drug companies.
Right.
And so those are the three main industries that want to keep marijuana illegal. But what happens, it's only a small sliver. A lot of people look at marijuana industry and they're thinking recreational marijuana or recreational and medicinal is what they're looking at in terms of a cannabis industry. But when you look at an entire industry of cannabis, the recreational and the medicinal aspect of the cannabis industry is a very small sliver. Okay? Mm-hmm. What they're really, really worried about, if you legalize marijuana, you have to legalize hemp. That would be stupid to say we're going to legalize marijuana, but we're going to keep hemp illegal.
Right.
Well, hemp is what they're really concerned about. And like I said, recreational and medicinal marijuana industries are a very small sliver of the pie in the overall cannabis industry as a whole. Because really, with hemp, you can fuel American cars. Yep. So American farmers can grow American hemp to fuel American cars. Big oil doesn't want to see that. It would literally put big oil out of business. Literally. You have hemp that can be grown to, I'm wearing cotton jeans right now. I got to replace these things every couple of months. You wear hemp jeans, they'll last you a lifetime. And if you're a construction worker, maybe you replace them every year instead of every, couple of months. So textiles, clothing company, textile industries, food, hemp seeds, paper's another one. Hemp paper is way better than trees. You're not cutting trees down. It lasts longer than wood pulp paper, way longer. You're not cutting trees down. 1 acre of hemp grows in 4 months and you can harvest it. Yep. It takes 20 years to grow a freaking tree. Yeah. Right. You know what I mean? So the paper industry, the lumber industry, hemp, I don't know if you guys ever heard of hempcrete. It's the cellulose, which is the material that's in the stalk of the hemp plant. Okay. Once they take the fibers off the stalk, they use that for textiles, clothing, and whatnot. But the cellulose, which is the center of the hemp, can be ground up into a powder, mixed 50-50 with limestone and water. That's it. Wow. It's 10 times lighter than concrete, 10 times stronger than concrete. Wow. And it breathes, so the humidity inside your home will stay the same no matter how humid or how dry it is outside. So if it's real humid, that hempcrete absorbs the humidity, and because it's antimicrobial or viral, it's antibacterial, the hemp is just naturally, it won't mold up on you. So it absorbs that humidity when it's real humid, and then when it's really dry, as you're getting close to December and January, those months become really dry, it'll slowly release that moisture back into the air of your home. So it's one of the best home building materials in the world. Right. And it's fireproof, it's termite proof. Wow. It's such an incredible substance. So it would change. Obviously, the unions of construction companies don't want that because they want to lay fiberglass in your walls. They want to put framing of 2x4s in your walls, all which can catch fire and burn your house down. But it keeps construction unions in business. So they're also another huge conglomerate that wants to keep hemp illegal. Right. So I'm just touching the surface. I could go on here for 10 years telling you guys about.
Well, I was just thinking about if they did go with hemp, a lot of people would be out of jobs. Oh, yeah, which would open up a whole nother problem, right?
Yeah. Well, the problem would be taken care of.
And they'd all be high and out of a job.
There you go. That's what it would. So you'd see big oil collapse. You'd see plastic manufacturing companies, disband. Right. But who would take up all that extra employees?
Yeah, you gotta hire them. They gotta hire people.
You gotta process hemp into paper. Yep. You gotta make hemp plastic, which by the way is biodegradable. The
and you're talking about protecting the earth, which is a big deal, right?
The plastic water bottles are a big problem right now in landfill sites and in the ocean. And those plastic bottles, you know where they're made from? The oil drilled out of the ground. If you can make that with hemp oil, it's biodegradable. Throw them in the ocean. The fish will love it. Wow. Do you know what I mean? And so in the landfill sites, it'll biodegrade quickly and just return back to soil.
And look what the pollution is doing to the shores of Florida. I don't know if you're aware of that. This is crazy what's going on in Florida.
And we can make plastic bottles out of hemp plastic.
You thinking about running for office anytime soon?
I don't think I would. So
you have
never
friends who think like you who may be running for office anytime soon?
Yes, Adam Kokesh. Okay. Adam Kokesh. He's a libertarian anarchist.
Jimbo, write that down. Okay.
And he's a very good interview. You guys ever want him on here? Adam Kokesh, he's been in and out of jail. He's a hardcore libertarian activist, and he wrote the book Freedom, which I actually have in my bag, and it's in the car. And it's downloadable. You can download it for free. Adam Kokesh, 2020. He's already got his bus. It's already what do you call it? Vinyl wrap with Kokesh 2020, and he's running not for president, but for unpresident.
Oh my God.
So Adam Kokesh's platform is he's running under third party under the libertarian ticket. So it's already an uphill battle for him. But the big thing is getting the message out there, and that's really why he's running. But let's just say in the slim chance he does win and become president, his goal is to dismantle every federal program and return all the powers back to the governments that run the states. So getting rid of all the power, relinquishing all the powers of the federal government and returning them back to the state. And that is why he's running for unpresident. So if you're living here in New York and you have an issue, and for some weird reason that issue, whatever, I don't know, it could be anything out in the street, that issue is somehow magically a federal issue now. Well, now you got to get your ass up from where you work every day, leave your family and take time off your job, fly all the way out to Washington, D.C., hopefully get to see some politicians, and then address your issue. If there was no more federal government and all the issues could be taken care of locally, you could just literally not take any time off work, just walk over to your local politicians.
Andrew Cuomo would be like our president.
Yeah, that'd be pretty rough.
But here's the thing. Now Andrew Cuomo can't pass the buck to the feds. He's got to get. He's got to deal with you directly. Right. He's got to answer your questions.
Can't start the issues anymore like they do with the game.
Right. The buck stops at him, and he's just a quick hop, skipping away.
Right. So we're trying to eliminate the game hopping. Oh no, you don't come back here.
Exactly. It makes it a lot more tough for criminals in government to just push laws through without having the citizens confront them and say, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Simplify the complexity of the bullshit.
Exactly. Bingo. So Adam Kokesh, 2020.
I got you.
Just to bounce back, we were talking about animals before we went on air. The CBD oil is also good for the animals. Also, right?
Absolutely.
So we were speaking about my sick dog, and you had given me some recommendations. Could you share that? Or?
Absolutely. In our dispensary, we have several different brands of dog treats that have 2.5 milligrams of CBD. There's another one that's 5 milligrams of CBD, and these things fly off our shelves. I mean, fly. And we hear the reports every day. We hear the reports. I've been giving that stuff to my dog. He's 14 years old. He hasn't been walking very well for the last 2 years, and now he's like a puppy. Running around. He's a lot more energetic. It's because the arthritis in their joints get hit with that CBD, which reduces the inflammation, reduces their pain, and your dog becomes a lot more spunky and happy and ready to run around and play again. So for older dogs, it's indispensable. It's incredible. It's really incredible to see the benefits of the compounds that we can extract from this plant we all love and call marijuana. It's remarkable how we grew up being told that this is an evil plant. It just boggles my mind, and it goes back to government-run education and government in general. Just brainwashing us into believing that this is evil, and there's nothing. I'll tell you what's evil.
I thought it was shit when I was a teenager. I said, "Screw your rumors."
I bought into it. I thought it was bad.
This has been a 33-year. Go after yourself, man.
That's tough to find someone that's been drinking for 33 years nonstop to be as healthy as you are. You know what I mean?
I'm hanging in
there. Yeah, there you go, my friend.
And I avoid alcohol, by the way. I'm not a drinker. I'm just a smoker, pretty much.
Yeah, me too. That's all I do.
That's it.
Just cannabis, man. Yeah, that alcohol is another. Obviously, let's face it. Most adults drink responsibly.
Right.
But those people that get a little bit of alcohol in them and they can't stop. It's
instant asshole.
Yeah, alcohol's a bad drug, man. Bad drug for sure. Yeah,
I agree, man.
Yeah. So where could we go to buy the product? Or?
So you can buy those CBD dog treats online. Now, here's something for you. My daughter right now, she's 12 years old. She's already experimenting with making dog treats. She wants to make them, so that they taste really good.
Right.
And she's already come up and asked me and said, Dad, can you get me some CBD to infuse into these? And I want to sell CBD dog treats. So that's something I'm definitely going to work on her with.
Wow,
And
that's
the
great.
next month or two, yeah. But you can get them online, man. Just type in CBD dog treats, and there's all kinds of stores selling them online.
Terrific.
So, yeah, my
Right, so-
12-year-old daughter wants to create a CBD dog treat.
I really appreciate you coming in. This is great.
Thank you, man.
We're almost out of time. I just want to ask you on a wrestling end, how do you feel about today's product, and how do you feel about the growth of the women's division, and what's your thought process as being a male in the
Do you
industry?
still watch wrestling?
So that's a question I can't even answer because I don't even watch the product anymore.
Okay.
And it's not because I don't want to. I mean, I'm a wrestling fan at heart. I've been a wrestling fan all my life. It's just that I've developed another passion. I still have a passion for wrestling. But it's one of those things, I did it for 24 years full time. I've got another passion now, and that's also in cannabis. It's not that I don't want to watch Raw. It's not that I don't want to watch SmackDown. But in the cannabis industry, it's so demanding. And I just don't have time to do it. So I can't really comment on what the show's like or anything like that. I do know Bobby Roode's there.
Right.
And Bobby Roode was the guy that I initially broke into the business when I
Really?
took a little break from Puerto Rico, and I helped train him. First time he's ever been in the ring was in the back of my father's house up in Canada. Went up there for the summer, set up the ring, got him in the ring, and he picked it up quick. And then when I went back down to Puerto Rico, he went down to Scott Demore's school, continued his training there. Finally, he went down to Puerto Rico, and he took off from there. And now he's in, he did a great career in TNA.
Yes.
Now he's in
with
WWE, and I haven't even seen him perform there yet.
Vince is not doing right by Bobby, but that's
He's
okay.
not. I didn't.
in my
He's
opinion.
not being used at all right now.
He's been used. He's held the U.S. title, but it was one of those very quick, ineffective pushes. He keeps flipping him between good guy and bad guy, and Bobby is a heel. Bobby's a great
Bobby's
heel.
heel. Yeah,
and
yeah,
he's
for
been
sure.
using him as a faceless good guy, and we both know that doesn't really usually translate.
Yeah,
No matter
yeah.
how good Bobby is, it's just...
And he's good, man.
He's great. We
He's
love
a
him.
fantastic
We love him, but he's
wrestler,
just
yeah.
not being used right now. But I think it's
Yeah.
because Vince has 8 pounds of shit in a 2-pound bag with the roster.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
might
you
have
could-
something to do with it. You
You
know.
could very well hit the nail on the head on that one.
That's for
yeah.
sure.
And it's one thing I definitely got to get on YouTube and pull up Bobby's WWE matches because I haven't even seen one of them yet.
Just buy the network, $9.99. You'll be good to go.
There you go.
I just don't have time to watch it. That's the thing,
So we're out of time. Eric, you got anything you want to promote?
Please.
www.esspromotions.com. That's my website, and you can see all the latest happenings of ESS on there, where I'm going to be with all the different talent that I have coming up in town. I won't divulge here, but go on it, www.esspromotions.com.
Terrific.
Where the avalanche of legends just never stops falling. He's
Actually, they're falling. That's the problem. They're falling.
God!
I now need to move. I'm getting done with the '80s guys because they're dying off, and now I got to move to some of the '90s guys, the ones that have not already died off, because the 2000 and I'm into
Well,
the
don't worry,
2000
Captain
guys.
Cannabis has got the healthy outlook. He'll be around a long time.
He's alive.
I hope I am. But one thing that does concern me is in my family, there's heart disease. My mom died early and all that. My grandfather died early.
Okay.
My dad had a heart attack when he was young, but he's still alive. He's still doing healthy.
I'm adopted. I just run around the room blindfolded.
He just
I have no idea what's going to happen, so just give me whatever.
Yeah, but at 48 years old, it concerns me. It
Sure.
runs in my family, so you start to think about things
Sure.
like that a little more. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
And the problem is today's generation, when they come off TV and they want astronomical amounts of money, they're not worth their money. They're not the draws that they think they are.
Right.
People love
Especially
the
compared to
nostalgia.
legends.
Yeah,
There's that
people-
ego word, right?
Absolutely.
There's that ego
He
word.
took the thoughts right out of my head on that one.
And people love the nostalgia. People love the '80s and '90s guys. The people, my generation, or that's close to 50, that we grew up on those guys. Which now I'm working with them, and I want to see the guys. We see them as they are now, but we want to see them as they were, which you can't because of evolution.
Right.
The time evolution.
Right.
But
Yeah, I was looking for the towel when he pulled up. I'm like, where's the towel?
it's in the
On the warming rack.
In the warming rack, yeah.
That's too funny.
So, but
Hold on, I got to be Val Venus. So
I'm standing on the corner looking for them. I'm like, where's Val Venus? I'm like standing here looking for Val Venus.
I would reply to that if I was Val Venus. Like,
and something.
the warming rack's on, or the towel's on the warming rack in your wife's bedroom.
Oh my God.
See, the problem is that today, is, I look at aftermarket. Everybody's a star once they're in WWE.
Yeah.
I get the guys when they're not in WWE.
Right.
So that's after me. That's aftermarket.
Right.
They're
Yep.
in the market when they're in WWE.
Gotcha. Right.
What is the value aftermarket?
Right.
And these new guys are coming out because they're getting astronomical money up there.
Right.
At least some of them, and they want that coming off, and they'll get it the first 6 months because there's marks out there that'll pay that.
Right.
But then once that dries up, then you got guys like me who can give you 10 dates or multiple dates, but I can't pay the mark money because I don't have it. But I have a fair market money that I can pay you if you come off your high horses and work my program my way.
Listen here, Enzo.
Listen, it's a tough game. I want to thank you both for joining us and taking the time out on our show. Thank you so much. It's our honor to have both of you on.
Oh, it's
Thank
my
you,
honor
Phil.
to be on this show. This is tremendous. I love it. Thank you so much,
Thank
guys.
you so much. You want to send them out, Pharaoh?
I just want to get one more hello, ladies, and I'll be happy.
Hello, ladies.
The great Val
Thank you
Venis.
very much. The great Val Venis. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Too heavy to